Now that we've talked about passive transport, it's time to move to active transport. And the key difference between passive and active transport is that active transport requires energy. This is in the form of ATP. So let's talk about what ATP is. Those letters stand for adenosine triphosphate. Tri meaning that there are three. So there are three phosphate groups here, which I represent by a capital P with a circle around it. But again, that phosphate group is a phosphorus attached to 4 oxygens. And lastly, we call it adenosine triphosphate because adenosine is one of the 4 bases of DNA. You'll probably remember from middle school talking about base pairing with A's and T's, C's and G's. Well, here's the A. So we're going to put an adenosine in our drawing here and connect it to a 5-carbon sugar and a phosphate. That is our nucleotide. Specifically, it's the adenosine nucleotide. But because it's a triphosphate, adenosine triphosphate, we have to add 2 more phosphates. So I'll number these 1, 2, and 3. And the other part of this that's a key to remember is that the bonds between the phosphates, so the phosphate-phosphate bonds, those are going to be very, very high energy bonds. That means that when they're broken, they're going to release a great deal of energy. So now, going back to active transport, we know that it requires this molecule called ATP. But what it does with this ATP is that it uses the energy to move molecules across the membrane. But this time we're moving molecules against their concentration gradients. So if we want to draw out an example of what we're talking about here, we can draw a membrane, make an outside, make an inside, and maybe on the outside we have fewer squigglies, and then on the inside we have a lot more squigglies. If this was passive transport, we would be going down the concentration gradient. But because it's active transport, we're actually going against the concentration gradient. Instead of moving from high to low concentration, we're shoving more in there. So we're moving from low to high concentration. Because of this, we say that active transport does not result in an equilibrium of concentration. And it requires energy in the form of ATP.